Have you ever felt the silence speak louder than any apology ever could? You move on, you build, you grow, but somewhere deep in the shadows of the past, you know they feel it. They won't say a word, no messages, no confessions, just distant, like accidental encounters and questions left hanging in the air. It's subtle, almost invisible, but it's there. Regret. So why don't they say it? Why is the truth buried beneath pride, ego, and performance? In the world of Stoic relationships, this is more than a breakup. This is war between impulse and discipline, between emotion and detachment. Let's face it, most people think closure comes in a conversation, that healing requires validation, that if someone regrets letting you go, they'll come back, say the words, and everything will make sense again. But that's the lie we've all been sold. Here's the truth. Regret doesn't speak. It lingers. It surfaces in the stillness of the night, in the way they check your profile from a distance, in how they compare every new person to the one they lost. And that's where we begin, because this isn't just about regret. It's about understanding the power dynamics in a post-relationship reality, and how Stoicism redefines everything you thought you knew about healing, growth, and attraction. We're not here to recycle weak advice or shallow validation. You deserve more than that. This is about tapping into something deeper, an inner strength rooted in emotional control, silence, and transformation. We'll explore why they'll never say they regret it even when they do. We'll look at how silence isn't weakness, it's power, why detachment isn't numbness, it's freedom, and why the most powerful revenge isn't revenge at all, it's evolution. Throughout this video, we'll walk through 6 undeniable truths, each one a pillar of inner mastery and emotional clarity. You'll start to see what they feel but won't admit. You'll realize how much control you have the moment you stop trying to win back what was never meant to stay. This is about reclaiming your power, not by chasing anything, but by becoming the kind of person who no longer needs to. This isn't for the weak-hearted, but if you're ready to rise from the fire, if you're done waiting for words that will never come, and you're ready to embrace the strength of Stoic relationships, keep watching. Because the part they don't want you to know, the moment they start to regret it, is exactly the moment you stop caring. And what happens next? That's what changes everything. 1. The power of detachment. Why they feel the void. They didn't expect this. Not the silence, not the peace, not the version of you who didn't need answers, didn't need closure, didn't even need to react. When they walked away, they assumed you would stay emotionally tethered. Perhaps not on the surface, but somewhere beneath your composure, they expected a storm. And yet all they got was stillness. But what they failed to understand, and what so many people miss in the aftermath of a relationship, is that detachment isn't about ignoring your emotions or pretending you don't care. No, detachment is the ultimate form of clarity. It's seeing the situation exactly as it is, without the fog of fantasy or the chains of what if. When you detach, you remove the weight that someone once held over your emotional state, and in doing so, you reclaim the one thing they never thought you would, your power. And that shift, that's what unsettles them. Because in most relationships, whether they end in chaos or quiet resignation, there is an unspoken assumption that one person will linger longer than the other, that someone will be emotionally dependent, that someone will need the memory of the connection to make sense of their present. But what happens when you're not that person? What happens when, instead of reaching out, you rebuild? When instead of obsessing, you observe? When instead of performing your pain, you channel it into transformation? That's when the void begins to speak. They feel it, not through your messages, not through your words, but through your absence. Your absence begins to occupy a space they didn't know existed. You see, most people think detachment means apathy, but in Stoicism, detachment is discipline. It's the ability to master your inner world so completely that no external circumstance, no person, no breakup, no rejection can disrupt your emotional equilibrium. You don't control them, you don't try to, but you do control yourself. And that's exactly what they never saw coming. They expected pain to chain you, but instead, pain liberated you. You began to walk a different path, not out of bitterness, but out of intention, out of a deep, grounded commitment to never let someone else be the author of your emotional story again. And that's why the void grows. Not because you vanished, but because you evolved. You didn't fill the space they once occupied with desperation. You filled it with purpose, with self-respect, with direction. And the more focused you became, the more your absence began to echo. Because now, every time they reach for validation, yours is missing. Every time they seek confirmation that they still matter, they find only distance. And it's in that distance where their regret takes root. This isn't about revenge. It's not about trying to make them miss you. That's not stoicism. That's strategy. And strategy keeps you emotionally bound. Detachment is different. Detachment says, I no longer need to prove anything to you. Not that I'm doing better, not that I'm over you, not that I'm thriving. I simply am. And in that quiet confidence, you become something they can't explain, something they can't compare, something they can't forget. Because you didn't play the game they were used to. You stepped off the board entirely. While they waited for you to chase, you disappeared into growth. While they looked for signs of collapse, you were rebuilding your foundation. Not loudly, not performatively, but silently, patiently, stoically. And the longer your silence stretches, the louder the void becomes. They feel it when their new connections don't hold the same depth. They feel it when the attention they receive doesn't carry the same weight. They feel it when they realize you are no longer reacting, and that, perhaps, you never will again. That's when the doubt begins. That's when they start to question their decision, not because you told them to, but because your absence forces them to. And the irony, they left thinking you were the one who would struggle, but now they're the one haunted by the space you left behind. And it's not because you tried to make them feel that way, it's because you stopped trying altogether. You stopped needing their presence or their absence to define your peace. You became whole without them, and in doing so, you broke the dynamic they depended on. They don't regret it all at once. Regret isn't like that. It creeps, it whispers. It shows up in small, private moments, in dreams, in songs, in sudden flashes of memory. It shows up when they see a photo of you, not of the past you, but of the present one, the one who's more grounded, more focused, more in control, the one who walks through life with purpose, no longer defined by the roles you once played in each other's lives. That version of you, the untouchable one, that's what makes them feel the void, because it proves something. They never expected. You didn't just survive without them, you transcended. And now, they're left staring into the space where you once were, realizing too late that they never really understood what you were becoming. In Stoic relationships, this is the power of letting go. Not to teach them a lesson, not to manipulate the outcome, but to return home to yourself, to build a life so rich with meaning, so anchored in self-respect, that no part of you needs to look back for validation. And maybe they still won't say anything. Maybe they'll keep pretending everything is fine. Maybe they'll smile and post and distract themselves, but beneath it all, they feel it. They feel your detachment not as distance, but as depth. And the deeper you go into your purpose, the more they realize they can no longer follow. Because the man you are now, he was forged in silence, not noise, in discipline, not drama, in solitude, not codependency. And that kind of strength, that kind of centered stoic strength is impossible to ignore. That's why they regret it, even if they'll never say it. Because deep down they know what they lost wasn't just you. It was the access to a man who would rather choose peace over performance, who would rather walk alone than stay emotionally chained, who no longer needs the past to explain the present. This is the art of detachment, and it's only the beginning. 2. Emotional control, the Stoic advantage. There's a quiet kind of strength that comes from mastering your emotions, one that doesn't shout, doesn't show off, and doesn't seek recognition. That kind of power? It can't be imitated. It's earned, shaped slowly in solitude, in nights spent battling your thoughts instead of expressing them to the world. And it's in that silence, in that discipline, where the real transformation happens. When they left, they thought they knew who you were. Emotional, reactive, vulnerable. They expected you to spiral, to reach out, to try to make sense of what went wrong. They assumed that heartbreak would consume you like it does most people, turning confidence into desperation, turning stillness into chaos. But instead you stood still, not out of apathy, but out of choice. And that's the moment everything began to shift. Because emotional control isn't about pretending to be fine. It's about standing in the storm and realizing that the storm isn't your enemy, it's your training ground. Every wave of pain, every trigger, every urge to reach out becomes an opportunity to practice stillness, to test yourself, to observe without reacting, to feel without becoming. That's the Stoic advantage. You didn't need to block them. You didn't need to lash out. You didn't even need to explain your silence. You just kept moving. And in that movement, in that steady progression toward purpose, something happened. They started to feel uneasy. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you stopped doing what they expected. In Stoic relationships, your restraint becomes the loudest message. When you refuse to be pulled into emotional games, when you stop needing to prove your worth, when you simply exist as a man grounded in peace, you disrupt the entire dynamic they once controlled. Most people think power comes from confrontation, from saying what needs to be said, from proving a point, from getting the last word. But real power, it's in the pause. It's in the choice not to engage. Not because you're weak, but because you understand the value of your energy. You know that every reaction is a deposit into a connection that no longer serves you. And you've learned that the most stoic decision isn't to fight for closure, it's to close the door yourself. That's why your silence is so heavy. That's why your peace feels so loud. Because you are no longer the version of yourself who needed validation. You don't need her to admit she was wrong. You don't need her to regret leaving. You don't even need her to see how much you've grown. That's for you, not for her. And that's what they can't understand. When a man reclaims control of his emotions, he becomes unpredictable, unshakable. He doesn't chase, he doesn't beg, he doesn't need anything that walks away. And the moment they sense that emotional shift, the moment they realize they no longer have power over your state of mind, they begin to question everything. They replay the conversations, the moments of tension, the reasons they walked away. And for the first time, they start to wonder if maybe, just maybe, they miscalculated. Because now they're dealing with a man who's not just emotionally unavailable, he's emotionally evolved. A man who doesn't need chaos to feel alive. A man who can sit with his pain, learn from it, and rise with more discipline than ever before. That kind of man doesn't come around often. And when they feel that difference, when they sense the shift, regret begins to take root, quietly, slowly, like a shadow that follows them everywhere they go. They thought moving on would be easy. They thought you would react like the others, but you didn't. You rose. And in your rising, you showed them what it looks like to be truly in control, not just of your emotions, but of your future. You stopped waiting for explanations. You stopped trying to decode mixed signals. You stopped hoping for clarity from someone who made a choice. And by doing so, you gained everything. In Stoicism, emotions are not the enemy, but attachment to them is. You can feel heartbreak without becoming broken. You can grieve the loss without losing yourself. You can process the pain without performing it. That's the advantage most people never unlock. They ride the waves of their feelings like helpless passengers, hoping someone else throws them a lifeline. But you became the shore. You became the calm. You didn't just survive the storm. You became stronger because of it. That's the Stoic path. That's the kind of power that doesn't require anyone's permission. And now, every time they think about you, they don't remember a man who begged for love or closure. They remember a man who stared into the abyss and didn't flinch. A man who let the fire refine him, not consume him. A man who didn't run from pain but used it as fuel. And that memory, that's what begins to haunt them. Not because you intended it, but because emotional control is the one thing they can't manipulate. They can message you, they can test the waters, they can ask mutual friends about you. But if they can't move your spirit, they can't get access. And that's the truth they didn't prepare for. They expected to leave and find someone better. They expected you to collapse without their presence. But the man who emerges from emotional discipline isn't just hard to forget. He's impossible to replace. Because he doesn't live for validation. He lives for purpose. And once you've tapped into that purpose, nothing and no one can pull you back into old patterns. So when they see you now, calm, composed, centered, they may never say it out loud, but inside something cracks. That's the power of Stoic stillness. That's the power of becoming untouchable, not by avoiding emotion, but by commanding it. And now it's your turn to take the next step. If this resonated with you, if you feel the fire of growth in your chest, like this video, and comment number 1 below. Your story is just getting started. Subscribe now so you don't miss what's coming next. This journey isn't about revenge, it's about rebirth, and we're only getting stronger from here. 3. The silent transformation, becoming untouchable. They never saw it coming. Not because you changed overnight, but because your transformation didn't need an audience. That's what they never expected. Most people perform their healing. They post about their growth, flaunt their distractions, make a show of how unbothered they are. But you disappeared, not in weakness, but in intention. While the world was loud, you were silent. And that silence, that was the cocoon, that was the forge, that was the exact place where everything they thought they knew about you began to dissolve. You see, when you go quiet after heartbreak, people assume you're broken. They assume the silence is emptiness. They misread detachment as numbness. But what they don't understand, and what only those who walk the path of Stoicism truly grasp, is that silence is sacred. It's the space where clarity grows. It's where the ego dies. It's where the false self fades and the real one emerges. When you stopped explaining yourself, when you stopped performing for their attention, you started to rebuild, slowly, brick by brick, breath by breath, not out of spite, not to prove anything, but because you realized that your life, your growth, your value, none of it should be contingent on someone else's recognition. You began to refine yourself, not loudly but powerfully. You hit the gym when no one was watching. You worked on your craft when everyone else was distracted. You leveled up financially, mentally, spiritually, not because you wanted them to see it, but because you needed to feel it. That's what makes this transformation different. It wasn't for show, it was for survival, for evolution, for liberation. And that, ironically, is what haunts them most. Because now, the version of you that walks through the world is unrecognizable, not in looks alone, but in energy, in presence, in direction. You don't just walk differently, you carry yourself with a gravity that wasn't there before, a stillness, a poise, a groundedness that doesn't need to shout, doesn't need to chase, doesn't need to seek. This is what Stoic relationships are built on, not performance, not dependency, but quiet power. That's the power they never saw in you when they left. And now, it's the power they can't access. They thought walking away would leave you lost, but instead, it forced you to find yourself. To strip away the parts of you that clung to validation, that craved approval, that needed someone else to affirm your worth. And in that process, something inside you crystallized. You became someone you admire, not perfect, not invincible, but authentic, aligned, focused, and the people around you, even the ones who never knew what you were going through, started to feel it. They noticed the difference, the sharper edge, the deeper focus, the refusal to be shaken by drama or distracted by noise. You became the kind of man who no longer needs to explain his silence because his presence speaks for itself. And her, the one who left, the one who expected to forget you, she started to notice it too, not through words, not through messages, but through whispers of your progress, a picture, a mention, a glimpse of your life without her. And it stung, not because she still loves you, not necessarily, but because she realized that what she left behind was not the man you are now. She left the seed, and now she's seeing the tree. The stoic man she never expected. The one who doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't need her acknowledgement to feel complete. And that contrast, that emotional gap between the version she knew and the version you've become, is what breaks her silently, slowly, relentlessly, because in her story you were supposed to grieve, to stall, to wait. But in your story, she was just a chapter, a meaningful one maybe, but not the final one. And that realization that you've moved forward without needing her to look back is what creates the void she can't fill. She might never say it, she might never show it, but that doesn't matter because your transformation wasn't about her. It was about breaking the cycle, about no longer being emotionally available to someone who couldn't value you when they had you. And that right there is the essence of stoicism, not the suppression of feeling, but the redirection of it. You didn't let the heartbreak define you, you let it refine you. And now, every time she thinks of you, she doesn't just remember the moments you shared, she wonders who you've become. That curiosity will linger, it will grow, it will gnaw at her in moments of stillness. Because the more you thrive in silence, the louder your absence becomes. This is what happens when you stop waiting to be chosen and start choosing yourself. When you stop asking why they left and start asking what you can build in their absence. And it's in that question, in that pursuit, that you become untouchable. Not by hiding your scars, but by letting them shape you into something stronger. That's the truth she never anticipated. That the end of the relationship wasn't your undoing, it was your awakening. And now, even if she sees you again, even if she somehow re-enters your life, she'll know she's no longer standing before the man she left. She's facing someone forged in fire, molded by silence, and strengthened by solitude. A man who no longer needs her, not out of bitterness, but out of completeness. That's the silent transformation. That's why she feels the regret, even if she never says it. And you just keep going. Because the best part of all this isn't that she notices, it's that you no longer care whether she does. 4. Indifference, the sharpest blade. There's something haunting about silence, not the kind that comes from awkward distance, but the kind that settles like a fog, quiet, thick, undeniable. And when that silence is paired with complete emotional indifference, it doesn't just sting, it disorients. That's what they never expect, because most people are used to patterns, push and pull, love and resentment, tears followed by attempts to reconnect. It's the cycle of emotional dependency, but you broke that cycle, not by pretending you didn't care, but by genuinely letting go of the need to care. And in doing so, you picked up a weapon more powerful than anger, more enduring than sadness, indifference. It's the blade that doesn't cut with noise, but with stillness. It's the absence of attachment, the removal of emotional leverage, and that's what makes it so devastating. When she walked away, part of her believed she'd always have a place in your life, even if it was just in your thoughts. She counted on the idea that she could still reach you emotionally, that she'd still live somewhere inside your heart, even if only as a memory. But when you stopped reacting, when your energy no longer shifted at her presence, her updates, her attempts to appear in your orbit, that's when the real pain began. Because what most people don't realize is that hate still gives them power, anger is still a tether, grief is still a connection. But indifference, that's freedom. That's when the game ends, and you, by choosing indifference, ended it, not with bitterness, not with retaliation, but with total emotional autonomy. You didn't need to post about your healing, you didn't need to show off a new relationship or try to make her jealous. That's what weak men do. Men who still crave validation. But you just lived, you evolved. You walked through the world as if she had never been the center of it. And that's what shattered her illusions, because now the attention she once received from you, unspoken yet deeply felt, is gone. Your curiosity, gone. Your need to know how she's doing, gone. Your emotional openness, sealed, and in that vacuum her thoughts begin to spiral, not because you want her to hurt, but because you've withdrawn the thing she depended on, your emotional availability. She can't understand how you moved on so easily. She replays everything, searching for evidence that she mattered. And when she can't find it, when all she sees is a man at peace, her mind turns inward. That's when the regret begins. Not because you chased her, but because you didn't. And this is what sets Stoic relationships apart. The Stoic man doesn't fake detachment. He embodies it, not as a mask, but as a mindset. He recognizes that the need for external validation is a weakness, that attaching your emotional state to someone else's behavior is giving away your power. So he doesn't engage, he doesn't explain. He simply removes himself, not to punish her, but to protect himself. That's why your indifference is so sharp, because it isn't laced with resentment. It's clean, pure, absolute. And in that clarity you become unforgettable, not because you're loud, but because you're gone. And when a man disappears from a woman's emotional landscape, when he no longer reacts, no longer reaches out, no longer plays the game, his absence begins to speak louder than his presence ever did. She starts to feel it in conversations with new men who can't match your depth. She feels it when she laughs, but the laughter feels empty. She feels it when she lies awake, wondering why the memory of you won't fade. It's not because she wants you back. It's because you never gave her the satisfaction of knowing she still had power. And without that power, she's left with questions, with doubt, with silence that grows heavier by the day. This is why indifference is the sharpest blade. It forces people to confront their own decisions, to sit in the consequences of their actions, without the cushion of your emotional reaction. They thought they could leave and still be relevant, but you showed them otherwise, not by cutting them off in rage, but by simply living as if they were no longer essential. That level of detachment isn't cruel, it's courageous. It's the kind of clarity that only comes from walking the path of stoicism, from embracing discomfort long enough to realize it won't kill you, it will forge you. And now, she doesn't see you as the man she left. She sees you as the man she can no longer affect. And that difference, that gap, is more powerful than any apology you never received. You've become a man who doesn't need to be remembered. And that's why she can't forget you. Because you weren't trying to leave a mark. You were just trying to find peace, but in doing so, you became something she measures others against. A standard, a shadow, a reminder. That's what indifference does. It doesn't ask for recognition. It just creates a void that no one else can fill. And the more you live aligned with your purpose, the more evident that void becomes. Not to you, but to her. She will see it in the way you no longer engage, in the calmness in your eyes, in the strength in your silence. And she'll know, even if she never says it out loud, that she lost access to something she once took for granted. And maybe someday she'll test the waters, she'll send a message, drop a like, mention something in passing, but you won't flinch, because you no longer need the past to validate your present. That's the power of indifference. It's not a lack of feeling, it's the mastery of it. It's not passive, it's intentional, and it's the ultimate display of strength in a world obsessed with reaction. If this part of your journey speaks to you, if you understand the strength it takes to be indifferent not out of spite, but out of peace, then like this video and comment number 1 below. Let others know they're not alone. And if you're ready to keep rising, if you want more lessons on reclaiming your power through Stoic relationships, make sure to subscribe. Right now, we're not here to play emotional games. We're here to become men no one can shake. 5. Their subtle return, the test of strength. It doesn't happen all at once. It starts slowly, innocently even. A like on an old photo, a message that reads, "Just checking in." A mutual friend mentioning your name a little too casually. At first, it feels like coincidence, but it's not. It's the beginning of the test, the moment when someone who once walked away starts to re-enter the orbit, not boldly, not directly, but through the back door of familiarity. They don't say, "I miss you." They don't admit they've been thinking about you, but their actions begin to speak for them. This is not reconciliation, this is reconnaissance. They're gauging, measuring, testing whether the power dynamic still exists. They want to know if they still have access, not to your life, but to your emotions. And for most men, this is where the trap is set, because it feels validating. It feels like a win. It feels like proof that all the silence, all the healing, all the growth worked. But this is not the reward. This is the test. Because when someone returns subtly, what they're truly doing is seeing if the version of you that once needed them still exists. And if he does, if you respond with eagerness, if you chase even a little, they'll know, they'll sense it. And all the power you spent months rebuilding will evaporate in an instant. That's why this moment matters more than most. Because this is where you prove who you've become, not through confrontation, not through proving a point, but through your response or lack of it. In Stoic relationships, strength is measured in restraint, not reaction. When they come back, it's rarely because they want to rebuild what was lost. It's because they want to feel something familiar, a sense of control, a reassurance that they still hold space in your heart. And if you give them that reassurance too quickly, you fail the test. That's why this part of your journey demands awareness. You have to recognize what's really happening beneath the surface. She might send a message that seems friendly. She might ask how you've been. But you must ask yourself, what has truly changed? Has she grown? Has she acknowledged the loss? Or is she just reacting to your transformation, to your silence, to the fact that your indifference unsettles her more than any emotional outburst ever could? You don't owe anyone access to your life just because they miss the version of you that once prioritized them, especially when they didn't value that version. That man, the one who waited, who wondered, who overthought everything she said, is gone. And this version, the one forged in stillness and rebuilt in discipline, does not negotiate his peace. He doesn't open old doors out of curiosity. He doesn't break no contact because of nostalgia. He doesn't let a random message unravel months of self-respect, because he knows what's at stake. He knows that behind the surface of just checking in lies a question: can I still reach you? And the only answer worth giving is your silence, or your boundaries, or your clarity. This is not about being cold. This is about being centered. She left thinking the door would remain cracked open, that even if things didn't work out with others, you'd still be there, waiting, hoping, holding space. But now that space is occupied, not by another person, but by your purpose, your discipline, your peace. And that's what they didn't expect. They thought they could walk away and still have a place in your life. But when you mastered detachment, when you stopped needing their presence to validate your progress, you became someone they could no longer reach. And now, even if they come back with a different tone, a different story, a different face, you remain unmoved. Because the test is not about whether you can win them back. It's about whether you even want to, whether the man you've become still sees value in what once broke you, whether the wounds they left behind have healed into wisdom or festered into longing. In Stoicism, this is the ultimate measure of strength. Not how much you can endure for love, but how little you need love to endure. So when they resurface, as they inevitably will, you meet them with calm, with clarity. You don't rush to respond. You don't dissect their words. You don't make excuses to reconnect. Instead, you ask yourself, does this serve my peace? Is this connection aligned with who I am becoming? And if the answer is no, you let it go. Not out of anger, not out of ego, but out of alignment. Because you've outgrown the version of yourself that was willing to shrink for someone else's comfort. You no longer bend to fit their narrative. You write your own. And in that story, they were a chapter, not the whole book. That's what true transformation looks like. It's not about waiting for them to see your worth. It's about recognizing it for yourself. It's about standing so firmly in your truth that their return doesn't shake you. It clarifies you. And if you decide to engage, you do so on your terms. Not because you're still holding on, but because you've already let go, you've already forgiven, you've already moved beyond the emotional entanglement, and now you interact from a place of abundance, not lack. That's what scares them the most. Not your coldness, but your calmness, your ability to be kind without being vulnerable, present without being available, aware without being attached. That balance, that centered, stoic balance, is what sets you apart. It's what makes you different from the man they left, and it's what makes them question everything. Because now they see the contrast, they feel the distance, not in miles, but in maturity. And that distance isn't something they can cross with a few words or a single gesture. It's earned, just like your peace was, just like your growth was. So when they come back, when they test the waters, you don't flinch, you don't fall, you stand, you remember who you've become, and you let that version of you decide what comes next. Not the wounded you, not the reactive you, but the grounded, wise, evolved version who no longer needs closure, because his life is the closure, his peace is the proof. And that's what makes this return different. It's not an opportunity to rekindle the past. It's an opportunity to reaffirm your future, a future built not on emotion, but on vision, not on memory, but on mastery. You no longer see them as the one that got away. You see them as the one who taught you what you will never settle for again. And in that clarity, you rise not to prove anything to them, but to stay true to yourself. That's the test, and you've already passed. 6. The cold reality. They'll never say it out loud. No matter how much time passes, no matter how often they think about it, replay it, analyze every moment of what was lost, they'll never say it. Not out loud, not to you, maybe not even to themselves. That's the cold reality. The truth that simmers beneath the surface of every just checking in message, every glance from across the room, every passive interaction that carries the weight of what's unspoken. They regret it deeply, but they won't admit it, because admitting Regret means surrendering power. It means acknowledging that they misjudged you, misunderstood your value, underestimated your resilience. It means admitting that the man they left behind is not the man standing in front of them today. And for someone who made the decision to walk away, that kind of truth is too heavy to carry, so they bury it. They mask it with indifference, with pride, with distance. They talk about growth and moving on, while privately wondering how you managed to do it so completely. But you already know, because you've walked this path with intention. You didn't just survive the heartbreak, you let it refine you. And that transformation didn't just change your life, it rewrote theirs. You see, when someone walks away, thinking you'll break, and instead you rise, you disrupt the story they told themselves about who you were, about what you needed, about how much of your worth was tied to their presence. They expected to be the exception, the one person you'd never get over. But Stoic relationships aren't built on fantasy. They're built on truth, and the truth is this: people don't regret leaving someone they think they've outgrown. They regret leaving someone who outgrows them. And that's exactly what you did, quietly, unapologetically, completely. You stopped measuring your progress against their absence. You stopped trying to make sense of their silence. You stopped needing their recognition to validate your rise. And in that space, where most men would still be hoping for closure, you found clarity. You realized that closure isn't given. It's created, not through their words, but through your choices. And now, even if they want to say it, even if the regret has taken root and grown into something undeniable, they can't, because their pride won't let them. Because admitting it would mean acknowledging that you've become someone they no longer deserve access to. And maybe, deep down, they already know that the door they once walked through has been closed, not with bitterness, but with purpose. That the version of you who would have welcomed them back without hesitation no longer exists. That your silence isn't about punishing them, it's about preserving you, and that's what haunts them. Not the breakup itself, not the memories, but the realization that you've moved forward without needing to look back. That while they were busy hoping you'd crumble, you were building. While they were pretending they didn't care, you were becoming someone no one can shake. That's the power of Stoicism. It doesn't beg, it doesn't plead, it doesn't try to reverse time. It acknowledges reality, accepts pain, and chooses to grow anyway. And now they sit with that silence. They scroll through your updates wondering if you think about them. They ask mutual friends how you're doing, hoping for a trace of longing. They show up where they think you'll be, just to feel your energy again. But you're different now. You're not moved by nostalgia. You're not drawn to the past. You're not interested in stories that start in regret and end in nothing. Because you've done the work. You've faced the nights when you questioned everything. You've sat with your pain, learned from it, turned it into fuel. And now you walk with a strength that doesn't need applause. You don't need revenge. You don't need closure. You don't need anything from them. And that's what they can't understand, because in their world, love is measured by drama, by reactions, by second chances. But you've transcended that. You've realized that some connections aren't meant to last, they're meant to teach. And she taught you everything you needed to know about what you won't accept again. She showed you the value of solitude, the importance of standards, the necessity of emotional discipline. And now, even if she found the courage to say it, to look you in the eye and admit the truth, it wouldn't change anything. Because your story doesn't need a final chapter with her. It ended the day you chose yourself, the day you stopped waiting. The day you let go of the idea that love is something that needs to be proven, earned, or chased. Now you love in alignment, you connect with intention, you speak only when it adds peace, you engage only when it adds value. And her silence? That's all the proof you ever needed, because real regret doesn't scream. It lingers, it shows, up in quiet ways, in the way she stares a second too long, in the way her smile falters when your name is mentioned, in the way she avoids saying certain things because the truth is too heavy to carry. She regrets it, but she'll never say it because she knows that saying it won't change what's already been done, and it won't bring back the man she left. That man is gone. In his place stands someone stronger, someone wiser, someone untouchable. And now, every interaction with you reminds her of what she lost, not just the connection, but the chance to witness your rise, to be part of your becoming, to grow alongside you instead of away from you. But that opportunity has passed, and the silence that once comforted her now becomes her torment. She'll never say it, not directly, not in the way you may have once hoped for. But she feels it every time she sees how far you've come, every time she senses how much you've changed, every time she realizes that you're no longer waiting. That's the cold reality. And it's one you've earned, not through bitterness, but through becoming, through walking the path of stillness, of strength, of inner mastery, through building something no one can take away from you again, your peace, your purpose, your power. So if you've ever wondered whether they feel it, know this, they do. They feel it in the spaces you once filled, in the calm they now can't access, in the version of you they can't touch. And that truth, it cuts deeper than any words ever could. If this message resonates with you, if you've walked this path or are walking it now, like this video and comment number 1 below. Let others know they're not alone. And if you're ready to master your story and reclaim your identity through the lens of Stoic Relationships, subscribe now. There's more wisdom, more fire, and more freedom ahead, and we're only getting started. In the end, what truly matters isn't whether they regret it. It's that you no longer need them to, because once you've walked through the fire, once you've rebuilt yourself from the silence they left behind, you realize the power was never in their acknowledgement. It was always in your transformation. Regret is not your business. Healing is. Evolution is. Becoming untouchable, not because you're above love, but because you no longer confuse love with dependency, is the quiet triumph of the Stoic man. And while they may never say it out loud, while they may spend their lives wrapped in pride, shielding their ego from what they know deep down, it doesn't matter. You're not living for echoes of the past. You're not lingering in moments that have already served their purpose. You've stepped into a new rhythm, one shaped by peace, discipline, and a deep respect for your own journey. This is the heart of Stoic relationships. Not the absence of emotion, but the presence of principle. Not the rejection of connection, but the refinement of what connection truly means. You now know that what defines you is not who stays or who leaves, but who you become, regardless. And who you've become, that's the man who no longer needs closure, no longer needs apology, no longer waits for the past to validate his path. You've already walked away, not from them, but from the version of you who needed them. That is the highest form of power. That is stoicism in motion. And that, in the end, is what sets you free.